George Herbert Walker Bush was an American politician who served as the 41st President of the United States from 1989 to 1993. Prior to assuming the presidency, Bush served as the 43rd Vice President of the United States from 1981 to 1989. As a member of the Republican Party, he had previously been a U.S. representative, ambassador, and director of Central Intelligence. During his career in the public service, he was known simply as George Bush after his eldest son, George W. Bush, became President of the United States in 2001. He was also referred to as George H.W. Bush, Bush 41, or George Bush Sr. George Herbert Walker Bush was born at 173 Adams Street, Milton, Massachusetts on June 12, 1924 to Prescott Sheldon Bush and Dorothy Bush. The Bush family moved from Milton to Greenwich, Connecticut shortly after his birth. Bush was named after his maternal grandfather, George Herbert Walker, who was also known as Pop. In turn, Bush was called Poppy as a tribute to his namesake. Bush began his formal education at the Greenwich Country Day School in Greenwich. Beginning in 1938, he attended Phillips Academy in Andover, Massachusetts, where he held a number of leadership positions that included President of the Senior Class, Secretary of the Student Council, President of the Community Fundraising Group, a member of the editorial board of the school newspaper, and the captain of both the varsity baseball and soccer teams. Bush decided in the late 1970s that he was going to run for president in 1980. In 1979, he attended 850 political events. He traveled for more than 4 lakh kilometers to campaign for the nation's highest office. Bush was inaugurated on January 20, 1989, succeeding Ronald Reagan. He entered office at a period of change in the world. The fall of the Berlin Wall came in his presidency, and the collapse of the Soviet Union came in 1991. He ordered military operations in Panama and the Persian Gulf, and at one point was recorded as having a record high approval rating of 89%. On August 2, 1990, Iraq, led by Saddam Hussein, invaded its oil-rich neighbor to the south, Kuwait. Bush condemned the invasion and began rallying opposition to Iraq in the United States and among European, Asian, and Middle Eastern allies. Early on the morning of January 17, 1991, Allied forces launched the first attack, which included more than 4,000 bombing runs by coalition aircraft. This pace would continue for the next 4 weeks until a ground invasion was launched on February 24, 1991. Allied forces penetrated Iraqi lines and pushed toward Kuwait City, while on the west side of the country, forces were intercepting the retreating Iraqi army. Bush made the decision to stop the offensive after a merry 100 hours. Critics labeled this decision premature as hundreds of Iraqi forces were able to escape. Bush responded by saying that he wanted to minimize US casualties. Opponents further charged that Bush should have continued the attack, pushing Hussein's army back to Baghdad, then removing him from power. Bush explained that he did not give the order to overthrow the Iraqi government because it would have incurred incalculable human and political costs. We would have been forced to occupy Baghdad and in effect rule Iraq. Bush's approval ratings skyrocketed after the successful offensive. Additionally, President Bush and Secretary of State Baker felt the coalition victory had increased US prestige abroad and believed that there was a window of opportunity to use the political capital generated by the coalition victory to revitalize the Arab-Israeli peace process. The administration immediately returned to Arab-Israeli peacemaking following the end of the Gulf War. This resulted in the Madrid Conference later in 1991. Death and state funeral of George H.W. Bush. Bush suffered from Parkinson's disease, which had forced him to use a motorized scooter or wheelchair since at least 2012. He died on November 30, 2018, aged 94, at his home in Houston. Bush's remains will lie in repose at St. Martin's Episcopal Church, Houston, from the evening of December 5th until 11:15 a.m. Central Standard Time on December 6th.